your previous fixed deposit is at around 5% or 5.5%, and now you might be getting calls from your so-called bank relationship manager that okay, the interest rate now is 7%, 7.1%, even 7.5%. So क्या मुझे पुराना फिक्स डिपॉजिट ब्रेक करके प्री मेच्योर विड्रॉल लेकर नया फिक्स डिपॉजिट करना चाहिए, बिकॉज नाउ आई एम गेटिंग अ हायर रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट? दिस इज अ sort of $1 million question, and it involves a little bit of calculations. Today what I'll try to do, I'll give you a ready reckoner, and based on different parameters you will come to know. Suppose you are having three fixed deposits, so you will come to know that maybe breaking one of the fixed deposits makes sense, whereas breaking the other two fixed deposits do not make sense. And let me tell you one more thing, that okay, if bank is calling you to do that, be cautious, because your loss can be bank's gain and bank's loss can be your gain. Let me show you through a calculation which will make things pretty clear. Now on the screen what I'm showing you is a ready reckoner for FD which I have created with very simple assumptions, with very simple calculations. I am not taking any responsibility that everything will be correct in this, right? So let me try to explain this. First is, let us say the principal amount for which you have done your fixed deposit is 2 lakh rupees, and let us say your interest uh, for that previous fixed deposit is 5.5%. Most of us must have done it at 5% or 5.5%, and let us say the tenure for that was 1 year, 365 days. So by this calculation your maturity amount should be 2,11,000. Your interest amount on maturity, that is after 365 days, will be 11,000. Now let us say right now this FD is 210 days old. It has completed almost 7 months. So what will be done by the bank? Bank क्या करेगा? They will charge penalty, that is generally in most of the private banks is 1%. And secondly, they will change the slab. They will not give you interest based on 5.5%. वो lower slab का interest आपको लगाएंगे. Maybe that can be 4.5%, maybe that can be 4.2% also. Here for easier calculation I have assumed that okay, the interest slab what the bank will calculate will be reduced by 1%. So there are two factors. One is interest slab लोअर लगेगा बिकॉज आपका 365 डेज पूरा नहीं हुआ है. सेकेंड इज बैंक विल चार्ज 1% पेनल्टी ऑन interest to be given. This penalty obviously is not on your principal amount, but it is on the interest. So if you are entitled for 5.5%, maybe they will calculate for 4.5% while reducing the slab, and another 1% they will reduce, so that becomes 3.5%. So they will calculate for roughly 3.5%, and obviously for 210 days. If you do this calculation here, what I have done, I have reduced 2% from this 5.5 and then calculated it for 210 days. Let us say your FD is 210 days old. We are trying to calculate whether I should go for new FD or not. Now if you see, based on these calculations, your maturity amount now, if you break this old FD, will come as 2,04,027 only. So the interest amount which I could have got was 11,000. Now I'm getting 4,027. My loss is 6,973. Right now, if I do a reverse calculation, now I'll say that okay, my base amount is 204027, and I need to cover 6,973. Then what should be my annual rate of interest? My annual rate of interest should be 8.05%. So what is the conclusion? Conclusion ये है कि अगर आप जो नया फिक्स डिपॉजिट करने जा रहे हैं उसमें आपको 8.05% से ज्यादा इंटरेस्ट मिल रहा है, then it makes sense. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. It is a loss to you. Let us do a different calculation. Now you say my initial FD was for 365 days, and right now this FD has completed, let's say 300 days. Instead of 210 days, it has already completed 300 days. With this calculation, if you go see, for balance 65 days, you need to get 14.32% annual. I've just done a simple calculation, and here we are assuming that okay, the FD will remain as a fixed deposit for another 1 year, right? So that means if you do a premature withdrawal just for 65 days, for balance 65 days, bank is gaining by 14.32% by breaking your FD. Your new FD rate obviously will be 7% or 7.1%. So this doesn't make sense at all, because you are losing 14%, whereas the new FD will give you 7%. Now, in which case it makes sense? Suppose my interest percentage right now in my FD is 5%, and that FD is just 100 days old. I'm just taking an example. I'll share this ready reckoner with you if you want, right? Now, in this case, you see my loss percentage is 5.71%. That means for balance 265 days, I'm going to get only 5.71%. So if the new FD rate offered by bank is more than 5.7%, which is there, most of the banks are offering at around 7% to 7.1%. We are assuming that okay, we will renew it for best of the possible interest rates, which generally is from 360 days to 12 months to 15 months, right? So in this case, it definitely makes sense that okay, since my loss is 5.7%, the new FD I'm going to get is at 7% or 7.5%, then this makes sense. But if the same FD is let us say 300 days old, doesn't make any sense. 200 days old, it's very same, 7.3%. If I do a very precise calculation, even if you're getting 7.3%, it doesn't make any sense if your FD is already 200 days old. And even if it is at 5%, for the balance period, in any case, you will be as good as 7.3%, because there will be two deductions. One is 1% penalty, and the other is that okay, 1% reduction in the slab also. If your FD is for short term, let's say 150 days, if the age of the existing FD is 150 days, yes, it is making sense with 6.32%. So it is not a blanket decision that okay, yes, go ahead and same do the same with all the fixed deposits. No, it all depends upon what was the interest percentage for which you have already done your fixed deposit, how many days out of that the FD has already lived, so how far is the maturity. So based on these two factors, you will find to know that okay, what is that interest rate which is attractive. Now in this case, what example I'm showing, if you are getting more than 6.32%, yes, it makes sense. Maybe if you are getting 6.5%, it makes sense. But as I increase the tenure to let us say 180 days, I need 6.84, still makes sense. If I do it 220 days, 7.89, nobody is going to give you 7.89. That means I am better with my existing FD. As soon as the tenure gets matured, I can then start a new FD. Right here, I have done few assumptions. There are few assumptions that 1% penalty for premature withdrawal. There are certain PSU banks which may not be charging you 1%, and they may be charging you 0.5%. There will be a little bit of difference there also. I have not done any quarterly compounding here. So generally, fixed deposits are done at a quarterly compounding. That will make the calculation more complex. I have not done that, and I have said that okay, interest is calculated for all days. Means if I'm keeping my fixed deposits for 119 days, for that slab of 190 days, there will not be any day missed in calculations. Each and every day will be taken for the purpose of calculation of interest, right? So based on this, you can always fill this data. What is the interest percentage of your FD? What is the tenure? There can be a bigger tenure. Like let us say you have a 700 days FD. Now, if you have 700 days FD, only 220 days have gone, and if even it was at 5.5%, if your new FD is more than 6.28%, it definitely makes sense. But in case that FD has already lived 340 days, then maybe it doesn't make much sense. If it has lived, let us say 360 days, almost 1 year, 7.36, new FD will not give you 7.36 most probably, right? So you have to give input at three places. One is what is the existing interest, what is the tenure, how many days, and how many days it has already gone through, right? From so which day you have created that FD, and which is the day today, whether it's the 100th day, whether it's the 150th day. Based on that, if you are getting this yellow color percentage at which you can book a new FD. Means if this is showing at 7.36% and your new FD can be done at 7.4%, it makes a little bit of sense, right? But if this area shows 6.18 and you can do a new FD at 7.1, definitely it makes sense. So how can you get this ready reckoner? I'm attaching a Google form sheet in the description here. Just fill that and we will be sharing this ready reckoner calculator with all of you, right? Hopefully it makes sense. If you have any questions, please feel free to write your questions in the comment section. We'll be more than happy to answer. I think this will solve a bigger problem, but again, use your own wisdom, use your own calculations. I have given you my own calculation based on which I would like to take a decision. So thanks for watching. See you in the next video. And if you have not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.